First of all, I'll go through a short introduction. My name is Liviu Stefanita-Baiu. Actually, I worked in two ERP companies, Romanian ERP companies, as a consultant in implementing their solutions. I have a BA in economics, and I will give you some glimpse of the reasoning behind this presentation, because Agile and because software development. Agile and software development work in pair right now. It's something that it's all over. I personally worked in during my 6 years as a business analyst, I worked in two companies, outsourcing companies, and both of them were doing Agile-ish projects. And on the other hand, there is a trend in what I call mammoths in business to become agile, to improve their time to market, to improve their internal processes, and that's why they want to become agile, because everybody says agile improves these parameters. So, first of all, our journey starts at a border. The border of Agilandia for a BA is the moment he realizes that the book he read, he finished reading yesterday, 600 book, is outdated today. And it happens in the most, for example, in the most prestigious association of professionals for business analysis in IABA. They decided to do peer review and peer development for the business analysis body of knowledge version 3, and because Agile, they added Agile compendium to this, and the book grew in dimensions from 200 and something to 500 and something pages, describing tools and techniques, because Agile is about tools and techniques, and is about using them to perform various activities. So, when you see that the things you studied are outdated, and you have to work in an agile environment, you have to, at least for myself, that was the activity I wanted to perform, and I realized that I need to perform this. I need to add value to the teams I'm working with, so they can, through their work, add value to the products they are developing. So value is very important in Agile. So the travel kit. Usually a kit contains tangible things. This one contains attitude, because attitude means, in my opinion, and that's the things I wrote here, is the sum of decisions, decisions you make as a member of a team, and the sum of your attitude towards learning and towards the work environment you are in. So you need to be willing to ask for help, because the team is should be your main collaborator and your main client, actually. You need to ask for help from the team members, and you need to ask for help from the subject matter experts, if they are any in the team, in your team or on the client side. You need to learn. I prefer to do it beforehand, but sometimes I need to learn about the product during my assignment. You need to learn about the tools that the team loves to use because you have to learn them in order to help the team most. You need to learn about the processes. You need to communicate, and that's part of the attitude that I'm talking about. You need to be open. Open, if you are open, if you say, okay, I'm not the one that knows best, you are the one that knows best, help me understand this. If you do this, you're already getting the trust. If you do this properly and you're open in saying this is not okay and name some reasons, some logical and clear reasons, then you earn respect. And that's something that if you get trust and respect in a team, you are in a very good position. About the travel kit, now we're getting closer to the tangible things because there are tools and there are techniques. In my opinion, tools and techniques go together. Almost in every situation, a tool corresponds to a technique and a technique is applied through a tool. So, but we are in an ever-changing environment. We are in the work environment changes. Everything around us evolves very quickly. So, using a tool to apply a technique you might wake up in a situation, get up in a situation where your tool is outdated or your tool does not correspond to the technique. And I'm sure that if you think about it, you'll find at least one example in the last 2 months, let's say. Because in the last 2 months there were some updates on our systems, on Android phones at least. On my phone at least. Okay, so tools and techniques. First of all, everybody in this room is working in software companies, used some application lifecycle management. So there are so many out there. Depending on the company, depending on the client, you can use either Microsoft Team Foundation Server, you can use some HP application lifecycle management, you can use Jira. But you use something. You can use even Rally corroborated with some other tools. What are the advantages of using this kind of tools? It covers all the phases of the development, and it's usually integrated with some other application like a wiki for documentation, some code review tools, and Jira has a few, and some other useful things. And it allows you, in certain limits of course, to use different methodologies. You can, in Jira for example, you can use Waterfall, and you can use Kanban, and you can use Scrum. This is the diagram represents a workflow that I designed. Everything that's here is done by me in collaboration with some others, for which I'm very thankful. But this is the process flow for a user story in Jira, adapted to the exact environment of the project, because it's, as you can see, is not very agile, being ready to sign off, ready for development, and ready for deployment. There are 3 statuses that are not agile. The user story stalls in those statuses, but there were teams that were doing different things. There were different teams, different locations, and also the communication was made through mainly via email. So the testing teams in this project's case, I think there were 4 teams with 3 suppliers. 4 testing teams, 1 in the development team, 1 and 3 others from 3 different suppliers. So it was quite kind of hard to put that visual. Okay, diagrams. Diagrams are visual representations of a structure, of a workflow, of system components, even of user actions. In this case, this is a use case diagram for a student on a university site. And these are the actions of the student. As you can see, there are some yellow brownish triangles there. Those are the links to the use case description. I like to use use cases, and it's important to have descriptions. The descriptions were quite heavy on text. I didn't include them here. Also, you notice the squares there, which are external systems that need to be taken into account when creating the stories for one of the use cases. What we can do with what other diagrams I used, timeline, of course, application flow, site maps, and so on. They are visual representation, and that's what I like about them, because visuals are very important for everybody, in my opinion. Mind maps. Mind map is a technique existing since Stone Age. Actually, it exists since Stone Age because the first circles related to them were found in some caves. And as a technique, it was a learning technique, and it was made popular by Tony Buzan, which is a TV presenter from the 70s. From the 70s. And it was used for learning. Because what a mind map does, breaks down things in small chunks. In this case, this is my plan for the presentation. What I wanted to include, what I thought would be needed, what I wanted to treat as junk or not. So, based on that, my presentation is here. You can use it for backlog management, you can use it for taking notes. The tool I use, it's a free one, and I use it to take notes at the meetings. So the first branches are from the meeting, then the topics, and then what was discussed, what questions there are, and so on. And there are some more complex tools which are integrated with ALM tools, for example. They can generate backlog stories and so on, but Mindmap is one of them. Is quite expensive as far as for me as a person that I won't use it. Let's say quite intensive. And this one is about wireframes and prototypes. Prototypes are a buzzword used by different type of people to represent different type of things. So, in my opinion, prototype is a visual simulation of the application you're building. It's not necessarily functional, meaning that if you press register, you won't have a record in the database, but it might be. It might be, prototype might be considered a proof of concept. Yeah, go ahead.
Is this a PA job on creating wireframes and prototypes?
Sometimes, yes. I've done it. I've done it quite a few times, I would say. This is actually a prototype that I created in very short time. You will see later that it's created in very short time.
Okay.
when I will click on it.
Usually I think this kind of things created by user experience guys, which are
Yes,
mainly focused on user experience.
yeah.
PA sounds a little bit far from this.
Yeah, but when I worked in agile project, in teams I worked with, there was one UX consultant, one UX user experience designer per 10 projects, and I needed that tomorrow. And he said I can do it by tomorrow. And I said, what tool do you use? This one. Okay, I'll do it. I'll show it to you just to not break things really bad. And he said, okay. And I said, we'll go with this one. And you are not going to do any, to spend any time on this project. So, moving up, let's 2 minutes, let's click for 2 minutes. So, we have the swipe, we have the click, the tap, we have the tap with some text, and we have some buttons that don't work. We have a user that clicks randomly on the screen, that's me, and clicks, and it's persistent in that, yes, and it works. And right now he tried that several times, so it's not the first try. Anyway. So this, I think, is a good example of a visual that helps a team. So I use this, not necessarily the design, the UI, let's say UI detailed thing. I sometimes use in voluntarily mode the design with pencil-like pictures, because I want to make clear that I will not show the UI, I will not show the real look of the site, but I'm more to the feel part. I'm a BA after all, I can do code. So, okay, moving on. Wireframes are not applicable in my perspective, so I've done that too. So, just to summarize, somehow the left part is what I presented, the right part are techniques in the most simple sense, because they don't necessarily have a tool. For example, must, should, could, want prioritization. Part of that, it's something we use for backlog management. Stakeholder metrics. Again, you can do a matrix on a whiteboard, on a white sheet of paper, on a mind map. As a mind map, you can do it in Visio, you can do it in Excel, you can do it in Word. So tools are not the problem here. T-shirt estimation. Again, you do this just to get SML or Excel for stories, and that's just to see the backlog size and so on. Given when then scenarios, you can write them in text, you can write them in Word, you can write them in code, you can write feature files and go further. But again, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We want to do that. We just do it like this. And it starts from there. So it's not something that is necessarily linked strictly to a tool. So, methodologies. As you said, everybody worked somehow agile-ish. Scrum is one of the most, let's say, tortured methodologies I saw, even more than Waterfall. Waterfall is blamed, Scrum is tortured. From my perspective, it's a very structured methodology. It has very clear definition of what you need to do in order to perform Scrum. It has roles, determined roles, it has artifacts, in fact, it has ceremonies. So, and the purpose of Scrum, as you can see here, is a framework within people, can address complex, adaptive problems, our ever-changing world, while productively and creatively delivering products that contain the highest possible value. It's a definition from Scrum Guide. So this is a very process-wise, a very well-defined methodology. On the other hand, there is Kanban, which also has a structure, more loose, also has some artifacts, less artifacts. It's based on the same backlog. It's based on the same concept of user stories. It's based on the same moving, showing people where a user story is and why, especially because you use Kanban? Yeah, okay. So you know there are at least 3 columns where you can see all the user stories in the backlog. To do, in progress, done. To do is the backlog, at least 3. You can add a lot of them, you can add limitations to each one, depending on the team, depending on the project. So, but the idea is to minimize the waste. That's the purpose of Kanban, and to visualize your work and the team's work. So, limiting work in progress. That's a very important thing. Addressing blockers as they occur. Because if somebody is blocked, then he cannot work on something else and will not be able to deliver the work that others depends on. So visualize the work in all phases. That's a clear need. And on the same page, see the whole product. Improve the workflow and environment when it's needed. I need to add a limitation to a column because I see 3 developers are working on 7 tasks at once. I do it as it comes. Nobody should be able to have 2 items in progress at the same time. If an issue is blocked, then move it back to backlog with the tag blocked, or create a new column. And that's a team decision, a manager decision, depending on what he wants to do. Make decisions at the right time with as much information as you have at the moment. Actually, in Lean, it's interesting to make decisions as late as possible. And why is that? Because you have more information. And that's the only reason why. And get feedback. You see something is blocked, you have the instant feedback at any time. You cannot join team session, fine. You cannot see the team members in your location, fine. But you see when one is blocked. And you can address his issue. Call him, write him something, get feedback and get an action. That's the purpose. And on the other hand, when something is done, it can be shown. Thank you. We're packing up, so thank you very much. Okay, so packing up what I said before. You need attitude, you need tools and techniques, you need techniques alone, and you can use all of these in working in some methodology. You need to be open, you need to be willing to learn, you need to be ready for helping others and asking for help, You need to communicate often with your team members. You have at hand in your company or in your startup or in your day-to-day life. Even in the family you can use, I have some friends that use Trello. Have you heard of Trello?
Yeah.
Okay, I have some friends that use Trello to assign each other tasks. Pay the rent, and pay the car's insurance. Literally, there are some stories like this. Anyway, so you can use tools and techniques. I personally have not a preference, I would say a passion for visuals, and I like to go for visual tools, and you can use various techniques, as I said. That's the journey. That's the beginning of the journey. Because from here, everybody applies things, drops things off from his package, and moves on with a new experience. Thank you, and bon voyage. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Do you see BA as a role embedded in the development team or more close to the client?
The favorite response of a BA depends. Yeah, it really depends on the setup of the project. Because I was part of teams, seen as member of the team. Right now I am on the build for the team, so I am part of the team. Because from my perspective, BA is a supporting role for the team that helps them avoid unnecessary discussions with the client. So it might be a good definition.
But there are multiple or several clients that have their own BAs.
Yeah, of course, and the clients require on-site BA. Why? Because you want me to talk to your guy once a week while staying in Oslo, which is the second most expensive city. I would say that it will save you money to have me on site for 3 days. You can reach, for example, any country in Europe can be reached by plane in a few hours. So I can reach you if it works. If not, I will just send you some questions. You will answer. You will avoid the waste of time setting up meetings and discussing things over and over. Yeah, they have BAs. So a BA inside of the software outsourcing company, it's very at hand. It costs some, it adds some cost, but if you sell it good, you'll get the results pretty good.
I just wanted to see how you sell it.
Sorry?
I just wanted to see how you sell it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thanks.